Very good afternoon, friends, and thank you very much for joining us. My name is Ganesh from HDFC Securities, and the topic for today's discussion is on exchange traded funds. Facebook, Google, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft. Now, these are some of the names and brands that have become an integral part of our everyday lives. So, today we are going to be discussing on how we as investors can actually participate in the growth story of some of these very, very large brands through investment in these brands, more so through the index investing route. And to do that, we have with us Pratik Oswal from Motilal Oswal AMC, who heads the passive funds business for the AMC. Pratik, thank you so much for joining us. Pleasure to have you as always. And it's over to you now.
Thanks, thanks, Ganesh. Thank you for having me, and thank you, HDFC Securities, for giving me the opportunity to speak to all of you. Good afternoon, everyone. Look forward to having a great discussion on international investing. It is a theme that is extremely popular, and it's getting a lot more popular as we speak. And I think the opportunity out here is to go out there and go out there and diversify your portfolios. But before all of that, let me just give a little bit of context, about why you should do international investing. And before that, I wanted to talk about my background. So before heading passive funds at Motilal Oswal AMC, I used to manage a lot of money for wealthy individuals in the US. So before this, I was in San Francisco, and I had around 800 to 1,000 customers, clients. And what I saw was, all of them, had between 20 to 40% allocation towards international equity. This is equity outside of the US. I saw similar phenomena when I was in the UK, and also similar phenomena when I was in Hong Kong. So, so international diversification as a concept is actually not very uncommon. In fact, it is a very niche investment thesis in India. But I do think that over the next, say, 5 to 10 years time, most portfolios, will have some international equity in them. So with that, I think before coming to the funds that, you can avail investment, I think it's important for me to at least go about talking about, why you should diversify internationally. I think that is a lot more important than trying to figure out, which funds to buy, which funds to sell, or obviously which stocks to buy, which stocks to sell. So I think let's come to the presentation, and I would like to start off with by talking about the opportunity. So if you can see this slide, so basically, if you look at today, all our portfolios, whether it be debt or equity, is in India. And India today is about 3.5% of global GDP growth. So basically what that means is that we're missing out on 96% of global wealth creation opportunities that's happening outside of India. So I do think that, and the US and I think the US offers a very good opportunity as a first country to diversify, because it itself is the world's largest country. So if you just combine your India portfolio to, say, the US fund, any S&P or a NASDAQ fund, I think you can increase that 3.5% to over 20-25%. So I think by having international funds in your portfolio, you're actually participating in global growth opportunities. But the question remains, why should you diversify? What is the impact on someone's portfolio? Why should you leave or diversify a country which is growing at 8.5% with a country that's growing at 3.5%? Let's find out. The biggest reason, sorry, I missed my slides. I would say the biggest reason to why I think most investors should diversify is because of low correlation. So what does that mean? So basically today, most investors in India would ideally invest all of their money in mutual funds. And what at least the data shows is that the diversification between mutual funds is actually not that high. So if you hope that buying 4 or 5 mutual funds will give you diversification, that is actually not true, because mutual funds tend to move in similar directions. So if you look at the correlation between all Indian mutual funds, it is typically around 90%. Whereas if you look at the correlation of, say, the S&P index or the NASDAQ index, it's close to 20 to 25%, which I think is extremely low. And what that means is that the US stocks and the Indian indexes move in very different directions. So what that means is that, you get really good diversification in your portfolio. You are lowering the volatility of your portfolios a lot. And you also getting some sort of downside protection by having international equities in your portfolio. So that's number one. Number two, today a lot of people are trying to de-risk their portfolio. So a lot of us are talking about buying gold, buying debt, buying real estate, all of that. The problem with those asset classes is that you're actually giving up on return for lower risk. So I think equity is hands down one asset class which is done the best. But I think when trying to de-risk your portfolio, you're buying asset classes with low return. So international equity is one such asset class where you're actually not only lowering risk, you're also having the same return in your portfolio. In fact, last 10 years, international equity, specifically US equities, have done a lot better. So I think the opportunity here is to diversify without giving up risk. The opportunity here is to diversify by lowering the overall volatility of your portfolio. And the opportunity here is to get some downside protection in case Indian markets do badly or if US markets do badly. You have certain mechanisms in place so that overall portfolio has not changed that much. So that is a very important. This is the most important point. I do think that most investors today are buying international funds for not most, but a good proportion of investors are buying international stocks, international funds for the wrong reasons. They're buying it because they want to chase past returns. They're buying it because it's a very hot sector. I do push investors back on that. I do feel that expecting the same level of return as in the past, is not something which is very prudent. You will be disappointed. So I do think that, if investors are very excited about the returns, they shouldn't be idly excited, because at least what the data shows is that it's very hard for good performing funds in the past to also do well in the future. So my recommendation is to not go by returns. It's actually go by diversification, which I think is the most important reason. So apart from diversification, I think one big reason to why you should look at international investing is because you're actually buying two asset classes. So you're buying obviously some of the world's best brands, as spoken by Ganesh, but also you're actually buying the US dollar, which I think is an important asset class. In fact, what we've seen over the last 20 years is that the Indian rupee has depreciated by around 3.5%. Last 10 years, it's been around, I would say around 5.5%. So I do feel that, I think that buying the dollar is extremely valuable today than it was, say, 10 years ago. So just to give an example, we've been running a NASDAQ fund and the ETF for almost 9 years now. And what we've seen is that the NASDAQ index in the US has grown around 6 times. So 6x, 600%. The Motilal Oswal NASDAQ ETF has grown around 10 times, so almost 1,000%. The extra 3 or 4 times is coming from rupee depreciation. And I think as a country, at least there is a higher probability of seeing further depreciation in rupee. So this fund allows you good protection for that as well. The other reason why I think buying the dollar is important is because today a lot of our expenses are happening in dollar. So we are doing a lot more foreign trips. We are sending our kids to schools abroad. We are buying a lot of goods and services based in USD. So I do think that having some part of your wealth in 100% dollar-based assets is something which is extremely prudent. Third reason, I think, and this is again very important, is the dividend yields. So dividend yields for I think especially the S&P 500 is quite high. So you're looking at 2.5% dividend yield, which I think is way higher than what you would get in India. And I do feel that that is a very big impact over the long run. Just to give an example, the S&P 500 without dividends did around 11x over the last 10 years. If you add dividends, it's done 25x. So that is the magic of dividend compounding. And I do feel that that 2% being added every year can make a significant difference over time, over the long term. So I think dividend rates are good. And lastly, I think the quality of companies, sorry, my keyboard's not working. So the quality of companies. So as you know, today, I would say most mutual funds in India, would have, say, great companies like, say, Reliance or HDFC Bank or TCS, but I think it's good to have other such companies as well in your portfolio. I think if you look at the type of quality of company that you're getting in both these funds, the S&P and NASDAQ, I do think that you're getting good quality, and I think it's good to have certain companies in your portfolio too. Plus, also, I think what's very important to understand is that these are not really US brands; these are global brands with global business models. So even though you're buying a US-based fund, you're actually participating in global growth opportunities. In fact, what we've seen is that these companies with their global businesses have done a lot better than their US businesses. So, and we do feel like globalization is going to improve, going to go up a lot from where it is right now. So I do feel like I think it's good to have certain exposure into some of these emerging brands. Also, a lot of our expenditure is also happening in these brands. If you look at India today, we are spending a lot more time and effort and also money in some of these companies out here. So I do think that typically our portfolio should evolve with our expenditure patterns. And I do feel that I would say maybe 30 or 40 or maybe 50% of our expenditure is happening in, say, a lot of these global brands that you see out there. So that's typically, why someone should invest. I'll just quickly talk about the two indexes that we have. So before talking about the indexes, I wanted to sort of just let all of you know about, why index funds. Obviously in India, there is a good debate between active and passive, and I do feel that both are equally good strategies. But when you look at abroad markets, say more developed countries such as the US, I do think that passive funds are in a way slightly easier and better in the way they are structured. So just to give an example, the S&P 500 fund has beaten close to 91% of all other active funds in the US, and that has been a consistent sort of measure over a long time. It's also very easy, I think finding a fund manager in India is hard, finding one abroad is even harder. So I do feel like the index is a very simple strategy. It's a low cost strategy, so the fund that we have is maybe 1/10, maybe 1/2, or maybe 1/3 of the cost of any other active fund. So I do think that it's low cost, it's simple, and it's also very effective in terms of the returns that given, which is why we feel that if you're looking to go abroad, we think keep it simple, buy the index, and make sure that, and also gives you some fail safe. The index will never underperform. So I do think that by having the index, you're getting something which will never do badly. So you can hold it on for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So let's come to the S&P 500. Again, this happened. So the S&P 500 is a very simple index. It's basically, it was the first ever passive fund launched in the world in 1970s. So it's very broad-based, very diversified. It's a pure large cap index. I think an index that is very similar to in India would be the Nifty 100 index. So I think it's very simple. You're basically buying the top 500 companies in the US, which are global companies. It has, I would say, if someone asks how the US economy is doing or how the US stock market is going, they obviously talk about the S&P 500. It's also the largest fund in the world, so the current amount of money that's currently being managed by this single index is about $4 trillion, which is more than India's GDP. So I do think that, it's a very simple, diversified, broad-based index. And even it has big fans such as Warren Buffett and John Bogle, who think that this is one of the best funds out there because of its simplicity more than anything else. So what is the S&P 500? It's basically the top 500 companies in the world. It's over half a century old. So I think it's not only has it survived, it's also thrived over the last half century. And now it's the world's largest fund. It's also very diversified. So unlike other indexes out there, this is a very diversified index. And if you look at it over a 10-year period, you'll see that no one sector has sort of, have a very high proportion. Obviously, lately, the information technology has taken a slightly higher percentage. But if you look at it from a 10-year perspective, what we've seen is that's a very diversified index. And lastly, I think very important, I spoke about this earlier. You're actually buying a global index, so you're buying, I think 40 to 45% of the sales of the S&P 500 are coming from the global operations. So typically you're buying so in fact, we call it the world's large cap index because half the sales are coming from abroad. So I do think that even though the companies are listed in the US, you're getting opportunity to revenue or growth that's coming from global operations. That's the S&P. So quickly coming with the NASDAQ index. So NASDAQ, we have the ETF and we also have the FOF. Both are very popular. The NASDAQ is slightly more popular than the S&P because number one, it's a much older index, much older fund that we've launched. It's been around for almost 9 years. And number two, as I said, the returns have been quite phenomenal. Although I do feel that the future is not going to be as good as what the past has been. So, always have low expectations and I think you should be okay. In terms of the NASDAQ index, just to give you how it's different from the S&P, the NASDAQ is slightly tilted towards more futuristic businesses. So if you look at, it has a much higher allocation towards technology, telecommunications, software, hardware, biotechnology, and also consumer durables. So I do, and more importantly, it does not have any exposure towards laggard industries. So industries such as, I think, oil and gas, real estate, materials, energy, and finance. So financials in the US is now a laggard industry. So I think I think the defining factor about the Nasdaq is that more than obviously its large allocation towards technology, it has little to no allocation on laggard industry, which is why the growth has been quite significant over the last 10 years. Uh, so one more thing that you might have to keep in mind that the Nasdaq is also a little bit heavy on the stock concentration side. So the top 10 stocks makes up close to 55% of the entire index. So you are investing heavily in the top 10, 15 companies. So it is not as diversified as the S&P index that I talked about earlier. But because of that, I think the returns have been quite great. So in terms of valuation, this is very important. This is what investors should know today, that even though obviously these are great indexes to buy over the long-term periods, currently the valuations are slightly higher than what they have in the past. So I think if investors are looking to allocate, say, 10 to 15% of their portfolios, I would recommend them to do it slowly, maybe over the next 6 to 8 months' time, is something which like an SIP or an STP approach is what I would recommend at this point of time, because number one, valuations are slightly higher, and number two, because we are in a very uncertain environment today. So I do think that given the uncertainty, I think an SIP approach makes a lot more sense. So that was both these indexes. Let's look at as I said, the dividend yields on the S&P are very high. Nasdaq is not that high because Nasdaq has a lot more growth stocks. So performance has been quite phenomenal. So let me just show you this slide. If you can see on the 10-year landscape, the S&P is done close to 20% CAGR, versus I would say 8% for the Nifty. So it has done really well. The Nasdaq is done even better, around 26%. Over a 15-year period, it's done around 19%. So I do think that the performance has been absolutely chart breakers, chart busters, and I do feel that investors who are investing, assuming this sort of returns, will be disappointed. So I think the real reason to why you should buy these funds is not performance. It's to do with diversification, low correlation, buying the dollar, dividend rate. I think those are the real reasons to why you should buy these two funds. So that's typically it. Just wanted to do a simple comparison of these funds, and this is a question that I generally get. So as I said, the S&P is a lot more broad market. It's 500 securities. It captures 85% of the entire market cap, and it has exposure to all sectors. Whereas a Nasdaq is a little bit more technology heavy. It's a little bit more stock concentration and sector concentration is slightly higher on the Nasdaq. It represents only 7 or maybe 8 sectors or 11 sectors. So that is something, some more differences. Obviously, last decade has been a decade of technology, so which is why the Nasdaq has done phenomenally well, and we do feel that I think technology will continue to do well in the future as well. So that's typically, my presentation. In terms of the funds that we have, Motilal Oswal has, I think, so we have 3 funds. We have Nasdaq ETF, we have the FOF, and we have the S&P Index Fund. So all 3 are completely passively managed funds. The ETF is it's now one of the largest international. So we are actually now one of the largest international fund managers in India today. So I think we have very simple funds. So the Nasdaq is an ETF which you can buy in the exchange. We also have an FOF, which is slightly more popular today than the ETF. So that you can buy through any mutual fund format. And then we also have the S&P Index Fund, which is again a simpler strategy where you can directly go to the AMC and I think buy units from there. So in terms of tax structure, just to keep in mind that all as of income tax regulations and also SEBI regulations, all international funds are taxed as debt. So even this fund will be taxed as debt. Having said that, if you wait for 3 years and plus, then you can get benefits of indexation where your tax outlay will come down dramatically after 3 years. So I do feel that I don't recommend investors buying and trading this. This would be a good long-term investment. I do feel that investors should not put 3 or 4% of their portfolios into international, because then it just becomes some other fund in your portfolio. I think a 10 to 15% minimum allocation ensures that the diversification sort of goes to your portfolio. So just to wrap up, and then we can open it up for questions. Why you should invest in international markets? One is diversification. As I said, low correlation to Indian markets. You can reduce your portfolio volatility dramatically. You're buying some of the best companies. So I do think that has added advantages, at least in today's time when it's very hard to figure out where growth is coming from. And lastly, because of currency, you're buying 2 asset classes. You're buying some of these US companies, but you're also buying the dollar And I think both have their advantages when it comes to buying currencies. So with that, would like to, I would say, finish my presentation, and happy to answer questions. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Prateek. It was quite an insightful session, and we sure do have questions. So I'll just bounce it off
Sure.
one by one. Okay. So, okay, the first question is from Mr. Vishal. So, how does this compare versus direct investing in the US market for ETFs?
Yeah, so in terms of direct investing, that's also a good option. So you have something called the LRS route, where you can basically through a broker, move money outside of India into a foreign broking account and buying ETFs from there. Obviously, I think currently, at least from what I have learned, the LRS is slightly on the expensive side. So I think yes, it will come down over time. So I think that has slightly more in terms of you have to do more tax disclosures and all of that, but both are, I would say, pretty good options. I think what the Indian mutual fund, at least international funds that we have, give you an edge is in terms of flexibility. You can buy it today and your money will be invested on the same day, and if you redeem, your money will be back in bank account in 3 or 4 days time. So I think the sense of flexibility that we are giving you is slightly on the higher side. So, but obviously, I think if you're looking at remitting money for 10, 15, 20 years, then even the LRS is a good enough route. Slightly more expensive today, but I think it should come down over time.
Great. The next question is from Mr. Dattatreya. What would be the tax implications in this?
Yeah, so I spoke about that earlier. So basically, as per SEBI regulations and also income tax regulations, all international funds, including if you do it through LRS, is subject to debt taxation. So what that means is that you would be taxed as how someone would tax a debt mutual fund. Having said that, I do think that if investors are looking at it from a long-term perspective, then I think tax may not be as relevant because you can get benefits of indexation. What that means is that you can basically increase your buying price by the inflation, so your overall tax will come down over time. I think close to equity levels. So the longer you hold it, the lesser your tax outlay will be because of indexation.
Great. So the next question is, how do I invest in these funds, from Mr. Vinay? Okay, I'll take that. Just log on to your HDFC Securities trading account, and under the products, you will find the ETF option, under which you can type Motilal Oswal. You will get both the options through which you can invest. The next question is from Mr. Vishal. Can I buy all these 3 funds without opening account in US? Yes. In fact, the 2 of these funds, that is the FOF and the S&P 500 index fund, which Prateek just spoke about, you can access it through our HDFC Securities trading portal. Prateek, can just throw light on, what does it actually entail for directly buying of the US Nasdaq ETF?
Yeah, so I think the differences are basically one is an ETF, and the other 2 funds, the FOF and the S&P index funds, are mutual funds. So ideally, I think the ETF is something that you can go in your broking account and buy it off the exchange. So you can buy it any time of the day. So it gives you slightly more flexibility. I just wanted to, put a caveat out there that, sometimes be careful about the NAV and the INAV of the ETF, because ETFs in India typically are not as liquid as what they are across the world. So just make sure that you're not overpaying on the exchange. So make sure that your price that you're paying for is very close to the INAV, and the INAV is something that you can go to our website and figure out. So I think the idea is to not overpay when you're buying and not under sort of sell it, when you're selling. So I do think that just have a look at the INAV and make sure you trade otherwise. If you don't want the hassle of the INAV and NAV, then obviously you can buy the FOF, which is obviously slightly simpler, but obviously I think that's a mutual fund route. And we also have the S&P index fund, which is again an index fund route. So you're essentially buying all these securities, the 500 US securities, in like a mutual fund format. It's like buying a Nifty 50 fund. So these are the options that you have. Obviously, it depends on your specifications. You can go up to any of these.
Sure. The next question is from Mr. Mayur. Would this be a good time to invest in international markets, as the prices of blue chip companies are trading at an all-time high?
Yeah, so good question. Yes, I do agree. I think prices are relatively. I think at least last 4 months, the US has run up quite a bit. So in fact, I think the Nasdaq is up at its all-time high, and the S&P is, I would say, maybe 5 or 10% from its all-time high. So yes, I think things have run up quite a bit, which is why I think, and also there's a lot of uncertainty that's also happening in global markets because of coronavirus. So I do think that have a staggered approach is something which I would recommend. I would not recommend investors to time the market. Markets are very efficient. Markets are very forward-looking. So I do feel that I think if you're trying to time the markets, there's a 95 there's a pretty large case that you'll fail. I think most people end up getting market timing right. So in fact, what I've seen is that people who end up getting market timing right actually make less money than people who are just generally invested. So I do think that yes, but also just a counter argument to that is that also earnings has been quite powerful. So if you look at the earnings of all these technology companies last week, I mean, they have been absolutely phenomenal. So I think even though valuations are stretched, the valuations are, at least from what I saw last week with the earnings of all these tech companies, there is some basis towards why these things are so expensive. Our dependence on technology has gone up dramatically, because of this COVID crisis. So I do think that yes, it is not very expensive at this point of time seeing the results. But as I said, because of the uncertainty, I think it makes more sense to do an SIP STP sort of a strategy.
Great, thank you for that. Next question is from Mr. Devansh. So if Nasdaq has futuristic companies, then why do we expect lower returns from it compared to S&P 500?
So I think in terms of expectations, I agree. But I do think that the Nasdaq has this premium, and it has sort of I would say delivered in that premium in a big way in the last 10 years. So the Nasdaq has given you 5 or 6% extra percent than the S&P itself, which I think is quite high. So I do think that yes, the way I meant it is to say that not investors should not have. I would say there's a big difference between risk and return. So in India, unfortunately, most people look at risk and return and not risk. So whenever someone's giving you an opportunity to invest in a high-performing fund or high-performing stock, you have to ask them, at what cost. So I think that is a very important. So Nasdaq obviously is giving you high return, but also it being slightly more on the less diversified side, it is also a lot more volatile than the S&P 500. So I think you trying to pick between a Nasdaq and S&P is more to do with what is your risk profile, and not to do with, I think, which is the best fund. There is no best fund. I think both are equally good. One is diversified, broad-based, and very simple. The other one is slightly more on the tech side, slightly more heavy on the FANG side. And I think it depends a lot on how the technology industry does over the next 10 years. So I do think that, if you're looking for something which is very simple, obviously, I think S&P makes sense. But if you're looking to play on the tech sector, or at least tech and consumer, then I think the Nasdaq is slightly better place. So I think these are typically two reasons to why you should go with these funds. I would recommend do 50-50. If you're not sure, I think that is the best strategy.
Great, thank you for that. The next one comes from Mr. Arun. Is a separate account to be opened, and what about RBI approval? Okay, I'll take this one. Okay, the HDFC trading account that you have is good enough to access both these funds, that is the Nasdaq FOF as well as the S&P 500 index fund. So once you log into your trading account, on the top right hand side, you will find products under which you can go down to ETFs, index ETFs, and you can invest in both these funds. Okay. So we will just take the next couple of questions. Due to paucity of time, we'll have to finish this. Okay. What is the tracking error for the S&P 500 index fund from Mr. Rajaram?
Yeah, so the S&P index fund is something we launched around, I would say, less than 3 months ago. So it's very hard for us to, I would say, talk about tracking error. Tracking error is something which ideally is something which an AMC is mandated to do after a fund finishes 3 years. So I do think that after 1 year is when tracking error is something which investors should look at. But ideally, I think if you look at a Nasdaq fund, our ETF or the FOF, we are tracking error the Nasdaq ETF over the last 3 years has been 0.3% annualized. So, we have been pretty successful in managing the NASDAQ fund pretty well, and hopefully we can replicate that success with our S&P fund. So I think the NASDAQ fund has not had that much tracking error. So we do feel that the S&P will probably be something similar as well. So, but obviously it's very hard to say. It's too early in the day. And also we've had huge inflows in our S&P fund. So our transaction cost has obviously been high currently, but it will hopefully be sort of smoothen out over the next 12 to 14 months.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. The next question is on the correlation part that you just spoke about, US markets having a very low correlation with the Indian markets, whereas it is exactly the other way around with as far as Indian markets correlation with the US markets. Could you just throw a little more light on why this happens? Because our correlation with the markets is very strong.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So when I mean correlation, I mean a correlation between Indian mutual funds. So suppose you buy a large cap fund or a small cap fund, essentially you think that you're getting diversification, but in fact, the correlation between the large cap fund and the small cap fund is, I would say, 90% plus. So you're not really getting that much diversification if you're buying multiple Indian mutual funds. Whereas a correlation of, say, a large cap fund or a small cap fund, any Indian mutual fund, which say an S&P or a NASDAQ or any US fund, doesn't have to be the index, is about 15 to 20%. So I think, and just to add a little bit more detail about that, the main source of this non-correlation is actually coming from you buying the dollar and not you buying the index. So I think, so just to summarize, if you look at the correlation between the Nifty and the S&P, without taking the dollar into consideration, and the correlation is around 45 to 50%. But the correlation between Nifty and dollar is negative 30%. So just to remind everyone here that you're buying two asset classes, not one. In international investing, you have two risks. One is the currency risk, and one you're getting the equity risk. So I think the currency and the equity combined, the blended is around 20% correlation, which is what I was talking about in my presentation. So I think the main source of non-correlation is actually the currency and not the stock itself. So, and I think you're buying both, which is why I think they move in different directions, which is why I think you're getting good protection for your Indian mutual funds.
Okay, so we'll go for this one last question from Mr. Puneet, who's invested in NASDAQ 100 ETF since 2017, but not received any dividend. So how does the dividend work here?
Yeah, so I think we already have the growth plan. So whatever dividend you're getting is invested back into the fund. The reason why we've done that is because I think remitting money back to India is slightly on the costly level. So just imagine Apple is giving out a dividend to your NASDAQ fund, which is all in the US, and we had to every quarter or every half a year remit that back to India in your bank account. I think it's slightly expensive, not expensive, but it's not the most efficient mechanism of dividends. So which is why both our funds, the S&P and NASDAQ, the FOFs are growth oriented. So that's why I guess you haven't received dividends, but just ensure that whatever dividends coming off is being reinvested back into the fund.
Okay, great. So we'll have to come to the end of this session due to paucity of time. So thank you very much, dear investors, for taking time out and joining us. We do hope that you found this session insightful. And thank you so much, Prateek. It was a wonderful session as always. And we look forward to more of such sessions going ahead. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Ganesh, and thank you, HDFC Securities, for having me out here. And I look forward to having more of these sessions with you guys. And if anyone has a question, please feel free to reach out to me on social media. I'm quite active, and I'll be more than happy to answer questions. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, everybody.